deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel. Did my Lord deliver Daniel? Then why not everyone? He delivered Daniel from the lion's den. Jonah from the belly of the whale. I set my foot on the gospel ship. And the ship began to sail. And the Hebrew cheering from the fiery furnace. Then why not everyone? Deliver America. When will my Lord deliver America from avarice and tyranny? Now hatred is hope's new master. Facts are now become a slave to fear. Now made but the property of capitalism. Did my Lord? When will my Lord? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? Deliver Daniel? Deliver Daniel, did my Lord deliver Daniel? Then why not everyone? When will my Lord deliver America? Deliver America. Deliver America. Didn't my Lord deliver Daniel? Then why? Then why? Then why? Then why not
Good morning, church. This is Life Meets Art Sunday, and I think if you were there for the prelude, you will already have been being touched by the way that art comes and meets us right where we are, right in our lives, right in our real world. I am so excited to be welcoming Aisha Tyler to today's service. If you don't know her yet, you soon will. She is a comedian, an actor, a director, a New York Times best-selling author. You might know her from Archer. You might know her as the host of Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's where I started. You might know her as a season regular on Criminal Minds, a former co-host of the daytime talk show The Talk. We are so blessed and so excited to have Aisha with us this morning. Molly and Aisha have been friends since college, and they'll be sharing the sermon moment today. And I can't wait for you to be inspired by it. But first, I want to welcome you to First Church Berkeley, which is part of the United Church of Christ. I am worshiping this morning in Southern Oregon, where Cheryl and I got away for a few days this week, and where I'm hoping my internet will hold up. Wherever you are and whenever you are, whether you're worshiping in Berkeley or some other place in the world, whether you're live with me on Sunday morning or reaching back from the future, you are welcome. Welcome if you are queer or straight or a little bit of each. Welcome if you are full of joy or sorrow or something else or a little bit of everything. Welcome if you've been looking forward to this all week, or if you're not even sure why you're here. Welcome to people of all ages, all genders, all body shapes and sizes, all abilities and disabilities, all religious and family backgrounds, all nationalities, all citizenship statuses. Because of your presence in this virtual space we are creating together, this particular body of Christ is whole and perfect. Because we're online and dispersed in space and time, it's more important than ever that you let us know you're out there. One way that you can do that is by filling out the welcome form, which is at firstchurchberkeley.org/welcome, or just click the link in the comments on whatever platform you're watching on. We'd love to know what's going on in your life, so please keep us posted so we can be a true community. Another way is to get into the comments yourself. Whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Vimeo, whether you're watching live on Sunday morning or later, I'd love to invite you to warm up your commenting fingers by getting into the comments yourself and sharing today when you last had a good laugh. Was it already this morning? Was it sometime recently? I think my last good laugh was last night. We were watching Enola Holmes, which I wish was a series with 100 episodes because I loved it so much. So, when was your last good laugh? Share that in the comments. Get warmed up to participate in worship. Let's become a real, strong, committed community together this morning, whether it is your 1000th service with First Church Berkeley or your very first. You are so, so welcome. And when you've added your comment, I invite you to get ready to sing. We're going to start with an opening hymn, so maybe stand up if you can, stretch out a little, and be present in your own worshiping space wherever you are. We're going to get ready to sing our opening hymn, which is a relatively new hymn text to a familiar tune. You'll probably recognize it, but the name of it is Give Us Laughter Unexpected. Let's sing together.
Give us laughter unexpected, birth and mothers us to health, bubbling up from deep within us, endless source of wondrous wealth. May our tears flow o'er our cheekbones, not of sorrow but of mirth, freely flowing silly giggles once and mend this broken earth. Though our violence break our brittle bones. There exists a sound that softens, heard amid the mournful moans. Laughter charges not a copay, needs no credit to obtain. All may gather at the fountain, for a moment heal the pain. When we think creation's over, when we think there is no more, lead us to rethink our logic, help our joyous song restore. There's a cheerful balm that saves us from the sorrow and the sting. Laughter is the gift within us, sprouting up from joyous spring. Blessed are you who weep with sorrow, soon the laughter comes to save. God, our joyful source of mercy, raises you up from the grave. Never cease to loose your chuckles, laugh out loud and let it fly. Hold yourself in holy humor, share God's joy in strong supply.
Proverbs 17:22. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Job 8:21. He will fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouting. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you shall be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep now, for you shall laugh. Luke 6:21.
Good morning, church. This is the part of the service that's especially for kids. My name is Sarah, and I'm here with my friend Dorothy this morning. In our scripture readings today, there were several different emotions that were mentioned. Did you pick up on that? Some of our verses talked about joy and laughter and dancing, and some of them mentioned crying and sadness. And I don't know about you, Dorothy, but I've been feeling all of those things lately. What about you?
I've been feeling the same too.
Yeah, like some days I'm happy and some days I'm sad and some days I'm both at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's really hard. But what I loved about the verse that we heard from Ecclesiastes is that it reminded us that it's okay to have all of those feelings. It said that there's a time for each of them. And the verse that we heard from Luke today says that we're blessed when we have all of those feelings. And I thought that was a nice reminder that God is always with us, no matter how we feel. God's with us when we're happy and when we're sad, when we're crying and when we're dancing. And one thing that I think we can always try to find, whether we're feeling happy or sad, is hope. Now, when you think about hope, what comes to your mind? What do you think hope is?
I think hope is when you like are like going to like go somewhere like you hope like in example like you hope to do something like kind of like a goal setting like you want to do.
Yeah. And how do you think we find hope during these times?
I personally find it through friends and family, but like it could be through anything basically that you feel that gives you hope.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's something like we're imagining that things can be different than they are now.
Yeah.
And when we imagine that things can be different, it like motivates us. It reminds us that things won't always be like this forever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that has been giving me hope has been seeing all of the ways that people are trying to support each other and stand up for each other. Think about the people who are protesting, the people that check in with their neighbors to make sure that they're not too lonely, the people who are making sure that families have enough food while our school buildings are closed. Seeing people come together and support each other really gives me hope. And I wonder if there are some people at home that are trying to figure out how they can spread hope to other people. So will you do something with me?
Yes.
Awesome. I want you to hold up 5 fingers. And those of you that are watching us at home, you can join us too. Hold up 5 fingers. Now, I want you to name one thing for every finger that you are good at. What are 5 things that you're good at?
One is soccer.
Nice.
The other one is TikTok.
Very cool.
The third one is baking.
Nice.
The fourth one is making friends.
That's a good one.
And the fifth one is making bracelets.
Ooh, okay, those are great examples. So we have 5 things that we're good at on one hand. Now I want you to hold up your other hand. And this time I want you to name one thing that the world needs on each finger, or one problem that you see in our world for every finger.
One of the things that is a problem is police brutality. The other one is involving immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Another problem is homelessness.
Homelessness, yeah.
And the things that we need is like that other people might need is food and support.
Those are great examples. Awesome. So now we have our 2 hands. On one hand, we have all the things that we're good at, or 5 things that we're good at. And on the other hand, we have 5 problems that we see, or 5 needs that people might have. So now what we're going to do is we're going to clap our hands together. Now I'm calling this the hope clap, okay? So we're putting the things that we're good at with the problems that we see in our community so we can figure out how we can help others and spread hope to people. So let's think. You've just named 5 things that you're good at and 5 problems, and you've put them together. What is one way that you could use one of those gifts that you just shared to help with one of those problems or one of those needs?
Well, I said friends and needing support, because a friend that you might have not talked to in a while might need support, so you could text them to see how it's going or whatever.
Yeah.
To see if they need support or whatever.
Yeah, that would be great. Use your gift of of caring about people and reaching out to people and making friends really easily with a need that you see where people might be lonely or they might need connection. And you can use that gift to help people feel more connected and more supported during this time. That's a really great example. And those of you who are at home, I encourage you to put whatever you came up with when you did your hope clap in the comments section so we can see how you can use your gifts to spread hope to others too. Now, before we end, we would like to offer a prayer for all of you.
Will you pray with me? Dear God, thank you for being with us all the time. When we are feeling happy or excited, and when we're feeling sad, angry, or scared. Help us to feel you and hang on to hope. And thank you for all the gifts you give us to show us what it means to be hopeful. Amen.
Amen.
May we always remember to bring our gifts and the world's needs together in that hope. I'm super inspired. Thank you so much to all of the kids and youth that helped lead that last section. We are headed into the simple spiritual story and then the life meets art conversation. And I want to give you, I suppose, not really a heads up, but the foretaste of a treat, because the conversation is a little bit long and we just couldn't bear to cut out any of it because it's so wonderful. So I hope that you just make yourself comfortable and just take it in, let it touch you, let it inspire you. And I will see you on the flip side for the prayers.
Hi, my name is Wright, and this is my simple spiritual story. The story starts right here in our cloister. In 1983, our family joined the church, and there were people sleeping here, street people sleeping here in the cloister and other places on the campus. It was very controversial at the time. Some people wanted to kick them out, other people didn't. About a year later, Bill Gregory became our senior minister, and he preached a sermon right here in our sanctuary. In that sermon, he quoted Matthew 25. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I say to you, inasmuch as you did this to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. Listening to Bill reminded me of my mother's passion for community service. She worked in mental health, and as a teenager, she sent me to visit people in shut-ins and in drop-ins and so on, and I got to know people and became interested in the people who were under her care. Getting back to the cloister, one night, my son Ramsey and I, who was 10 at the time, spent the night in the cloister to have the experience and to get to know some of the people there. We did, and I joined a committee that had been started, which was called the Wake Up Committee. That committee was a compromise to get people up and out of the cloister before 7 or 8 in the morning, so that the church could go about its regular operations. So from that, around the same time, Francis Towns, who many of you know, started the chaplaincy to the homeless. This chaplaincy worked with homeless people all around the south side here, and eventually became focused on homeless youth. Those homeless youth were part of, are still being served today by Yay, and I know that many people volunteer still to help out at the Yay shelter and for the dinners there. So on my spiritual journey, I've continued to try to approach homelessness in a more holistic way. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was invited to be on the board of Everyone Home, an organization that is trying to end homelessness in Alameda County. We came up with a plan in 2018 that called for a local flexible source of funds to fund housing and services for homeless people. We met with the Board of Supervisors and convinced them to put the plan and a source of funds on the ballot. So they did, and it will be on the ballot this November. It's called Measure W, and I've been working on it, and they need a lot of help right now. So if anybody wants to work on that too, I think the information is in our bulletin. I hope you'll join me on my spiritual journey. Thank you.
Hey, church. Church meaning anyone who's tuning in today to First Church Berkeley. I am Rev Molly Basket, and I'm here with my bestie, Aisha Tyler, from way back in the day. She's here as part of our Life Meets Art, Art Meets Life, I always forget what it's called, even though I made it up, sometimes series where we invite artists and journalists and writers and anyone who is a spiritual leader in not so obvious ways to be in conversation with us here at church, to expand and explore our sense of a lived spirituality, particularly a spirituality for really hard times. So welcome, Ish. Welcome, Aisha. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So we go way,
I'm happy to be here.
we go way back. I
Me
actually
too.
told my church in a little pastor's note this week how we met. And I wonder what you remember. I mean, we met in a freshman seminar, but then there was like a more poignant meeting. And I would say God put it together. I don't know what you would say, but do you remember that?
So let me just say in full disclosure that that I am I have a very selective memory isn't the right word. I remember like shapes and like feelings, but I'm rarely able to pinpoint like, you know, actual occurrences. And I've always been this way. I wish I could attribute it to getting older. But I remember crossing the street in the 8th grade because I saw a kid in the 7th grade I couldn't remember his name. So
I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't warn you about this question.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just like I've always been this way. But I do remember us meeting in freshman seminar. And then I feel like I saw you at like the freshman bonfire.
That's exactly right.
And and I thought it was like the strangest, like most kind of Lord of the Flies-esque.
My words exactly.
Expression of like repressed rage and confusion, and these people are kind of running around in a circle around this fire, like
not like
shooting.
anything we're currently experiencing, say, in present.
Actually much more elegant than what we're experiencing at large in our culture right now. Just like inarticulated, like in specific rage that they were expressing as they ran around in circles around the fire. And I was just so disoriented by it. And we felt the same way. We were both like, what the hell is going on?
Wow.
And also like,
and we just kind of found each other and we're like processing this and And that was, I mean, we were always sort of school friends because the freshman seminar, but that's when I felt like, you know, we were like inseparable after that. And I said we were each other's home, you know, we were kind of home base, or really disorienting, weird, becoming time. I mean, I felt like you always knew who you were, though. Like you were so cool. You were this West Coast urban.
I want to thank you for that, but that's not how I was at all. I was incredibly, like, I felt like a total fish out of water. You know, one thing we shared was we both came from working class families, and the school was overwhelmingly like very wealthy, very East Coast prep school, very white. And I felt very out of place there, very disoriented. And in fact, I wanted to quit like several times because I just felt like culturally it wasn't for me. So, I mean, I definitely, I've told you this a million times, I definitely attribute like me staying at Dartmouth to, you know, us forming a friendship, because I felt like real stability, and I had a kindred spirit, and someone who, you know, neither of us had all the answers, but the place felt much calmer and more soothing after I met you, because I found the whole place to be just deeply befuddling, and also like not as academic in a lot of ways as I expected. I mean, it's a great academic school, but I don't know, I just expected it. I expected a lot more kind of like this kind of, you know, erudite, rarefied, you know, like studiousness, instead of, you know, like, again, like, you know, Lord of the Flies meets Hogwarts, which was what it looked like.
Well, the Hogwarts part would have been cool, right? But I feel like we didn't even get that. Like, this was a place that
but it wasn't fun. It wasn't magic and sorting hat. It was like clannishness and people stealing your
It was all, yeah. Well, it wasn't all Slytherin, but it was a lot of Slytherin. Really throwing them under the bus.
We were very Hufflepuff.
We were so Hufflepuff. Anyhow, we found each other, and we were kindred spirits, but we didn't, you know, we came from really different we had really different sensibilities in a lot of ways. Like, I was sort of this very naive, you know, like in a sweet kind of, and you were this very sophisticated, like intellectual, like you knew what you want. I felt like you gave me a lot of courage. I learned a lot of courage and strength, and I learned about my strong self from your strong self. So I just want to thank you for that, because it really helped me become.
I think that's just like a perfect example of how other people perceive you very differently being perceive yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't know that I felt that like assured of myself at all when I was there. I was brave, but like to me there was a recklessness to my bravery, which was really just like, well, I'm here now, I might as well try it. I don't know that I ever thought like I know what I want to do. I just thought, well, let's try this and see how it goes. Let's try that and see how it goes. Because I was very lucky that I had been raised by parents who had a long tradition in Eastern studies and in detachment. Even though I couldn't have expressed it that way then, they were very much like, well, you know, it doesn't matter if you fail, you just go try this thing and have the experience. So that bravery might have come across as confidence, but to me, they're two different things, because I was just like, oh wow, I hope I don't catch on fire with everything I did. You know?
We probably did catch on fire a couple times.
I kept caught on fire constantly. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was cold. It was helpful to catch on fire. It was very cold there. And now I know that was one thing that was very alarming for you, coming from the Bay Area, coming from San Francisco and Oakland. You were not used to being cold. And the other thing is, you know, that one thing we didn't agree on, here comes my kid. I didn't tell her we'd be filming. We're keeping it real.
Yes, we are.
You were raised, you tell everyone a little bit about the faith you were raised in. And I was raised, you know, very New England congregational, which is like the Puritans and Pilgrims. And I wouldn't say we clashed, but, you know, we really tested each other about that. And you, for a long time, and we still have, you know, really interesting discussions about organized religion, particularly Christianity, which I understand because of the way Christianity has, you know, masked its its violence is unmasked really these days, but has purported to be this really loving religion and spirituality, and has done so much harm. So we had some pretty sharp words at times when I felt like I moved away from my faith in college, but I could never let it go entirely. And it was really a mystery to you why I clung to this thing that had done so much harm and was really, the root of, a great purveyor of patriarchy and misogyny and white supremacy in the country. So tell us about how you were raised and what you have brought
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my father was, I mean, I think like probably very kind of like East Coast casual, I don't even know if I mean, I'm sure his family went to church like Christmas and Easter, but for all intents and purposes, he was an agnostic. And when he met my mother, and she had been, kind of a seeker and had gone to lots of different kinds of churches, Pentecost, and baptism. I mean, my grandmother was an atheist and they did not go to church. My grandparents were atheists. My mother was really a seeker. So she had just done had every kind of experience. But by the time they had me, they were really into transcendental meditation, and they had moved to California from DC, specifically, I think, to be closer to a community that was closer to their spiritual values. And they were seekers the whole time I was growing up. So they were in TM for a long time. They dabbled with Hare Krishnas and all the kind of adjacent Eastern, communities that came up around that whole, thought. We lived in an ashram for quite a bit. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. It's still in Oakland. It's the City Ogadam ashram on Stanford and San Pablo. I lived there for a while, and then I lived very close there for a while with my family after we moved out. But then I wouldn't say in my 20s, my mother started, my whole family separately, actually, all of them started practicing a version of Buddhism. So my mother has been a Zen Buddhist, practicing Zen Buddhist, ordained for 25 years now. And my sister's a Nichiren Buddhist. And my father and my stepmother are still, I think, kind of gatherers. They spent a lot of time in India. They had a marriage ceremony in India. So, they have a lot of Indian practices and Indian meditation practices. They also, everybody in my family meditates except for me. I'm the black sheep, or the white sheep, depending on how you think about it. But so that's pretty much.
If there's anything if there's anything you're not, it's a sheep.
That's the truth. So, I mean, I think, we went to Ethiopia when I was a baby and lived with a bunch of TM disciples for 6 months. So my family has always been very open.
Yeah.
But I was just raised like very focused on, I mean, this is kind of self-involved to say, but I was just always raised in like a scientific discipline. I just thought very rationally about the world, and I wanted to be able to understand things and prove things and touch things. And that was always the way that I thought about the world. And to some extent, it's still the way I think about the world. And that doesn't mean that I don't think there are things that are unexplainable. It's just that I think there are so many tactile things that are explainable that deserve attention and energy from me personally. But my family is very much, I think they're all spiritual. I know my mother very much believes in God, and my sister, I think, believes in different kinds of planes of consciousness. And I imagine if you're a very religious person, it would be hard for you to understand why someone wasn't constantly meditating on this point. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think about it that much.
Yeah. So
I wish that I did.
Why do you wish that you do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that at times I really get I get very focused on how terrible human beings are to each other, and that's what I care about.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to solve. It might be nicer to be thinking about otherness and transcendence, but what I'm mostly focused on is human cruelty and how to end it. And to me, that feels like that needs like real practical, like tactile solutions. Yeah.
It's solvable. Human cruelty is solvable without divine intervention.
Yeah, it has to be, because if it would take divine intervention, I would really love that intervention to arrive post haste.
Well, believe me, a lot of us who actually do believe in God have a lot of beef with God, that, God isn't like, come on, God, if not now, when? But then, you've reminded me, like, we got together right after the election in 2016, and I, like lots of white people who had my blinders on about how cruel and racist our country really is, was agog. And you were like, this stuff's always been happening. And you sort of walked me through like the, centuries of, pogroms and Holocausts and,
massacre on massacre on massacre. I mean,
you were
too many to even
not so bad.
Yeah. I feel like we've actually made some progress. I mean, I do feel like there's been progress made, but it's just so disappointing how incredibly incremental it is, and
Yeah.
how it doesn't seem to be particularly all, it's this wave where we make a little bit of progress and then we make this radical, if you're seeing this big violent backlash every time there is any kind of progress. For people who are afraid of losing, control over what they see as their God-given, as their personal God-given right to be on top.
Well, I call that, ventriloquism, like they're moving God's lips, but it's their words. And there's a lot of divine ventriloquism right now.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it really disgusts me. It shames me. It shames me for my religious tradition and the teachings of Jesus, which, in the purest form really were about love and expanding the circle of who belongs to include everybody, and forgiveness and mercy and tenderness, particularly to the most vulnerable people, flipping paradox. I want to get to this in a minute when we talk more about humor, but Jesus was always turning the tables, not just in the temple literally, but constantly subverting society's norms.
It seems like right now, like the victimization of the least able and the least powerful has become incredibly in vogue. I just find it unspeakable. People have always been this cruel, but it's for a long time now, at least in the modern era, you had to hide it and you had to be ashamed of it. And I just think that what's alarming is how boldly people are, this kind of abject cruelty towards children, towards the poor, towards immigrants, towards people who are fleeing, a persecution and, religious and sexual persecution, and using their own persecution as a tool against them. Like the idea that, well, these people are being trafficked, so if we lock them up, they won't be trafficked anymore. And somehow that makes us saviors of these people.
Double negative, right?
It's unthinkable. It's extraordinary.
So, you said you do see progress. Let's talk about the last 4 years. Do you have more hope now than you did? Or did things get worse than you thought they would over the last 4 years? Do you see progress? And as a little, sort of anvil to forge this on, we had a conversation probably in 2015, actually, before Trump was elected. I remember I came out to visit and we were talking about the nascent Black Lives Matter movement. And you said, I don't feel like I can really, use my platform for that because I'm not in the streets. You wanted to have integrity. And if you felt like if you weren't sort of in the streets, you couldn't, but now you use your platform all the time to call out injustice. So what's changed in the world? What's changed in you? And what hope is
I think there was just always this concern back then that it didn't look like, even though I'm a woman of color, I didn't want any of my support of the movement to seem performative. I was like, help people were really putting their bodies on the line. This is like, kind of also the nexus between Occupy Wall Street and BLM. There was like a big overlap there, but people were really putting their bodies like on the line. And that was something that I wasn't doing, that I felt that I couldn't do at the time. And so to kind of like tag other people's efforts felt a little hollow, but it's interesting because we were talking about something along like a little while ago, and you were like, I know you're used to this stuff, or I said, you don't react to this stuff, but I'm devastated. I said, well, I've just been devastated for so long that this, I'm nonplussed. You know what I mean? It's not that I don't feel it. It's just like you can't get out of bed in the morning if you feel like every one of these injustices keenly, because
you have to
for everyone you see, there are just 100,000 that we're never going to hear about. But, there was this extraordinary moment this year that felt very different. I think also a lot of times people just think like, I'm just screaming into the void. I've been screaming into the void my whole life. Like, what's the point? It did seem like there was this catalytic moment this year. I think everybody felt it. I think, for somebody like my mother, who, was a freedom writer and was an organizer and marched and went to the Democratic Convention, I think in 1968.
Southern Staten.
I think that's right. They were trying to get a black delegate seated in the convention. Or a delegate that was representative of their movement seated at the convention.
Yeah, that wasn't Shirley.
Remember, yeah.
She was 72, I think. I was thinking of Shirley Chisholm, but
I think it was 68.
Yeah.
That it does feel different, that there's always been allies, but that the scope and the reach and the duration and I said this to somebody the other day, honestly, I know this sounds a little glib, but like this is the first time that corporations have really connected with this movement. And while no one wants to be corporatized, when a big ass company decides that it's time to get on the BLM bandwagon, like something is different now. You know what I mean? Because what happens is now that those doors have opened, now they can't close them again. They can't go back to being, you know, kind of head in the sand. We're all about profits. Well, we have to hold them to it. I mean, that's our job as well.
Well,
but I do think that there's been.
I'm surprised to
What's
find
that?
myself more cynical than you on this, but I think it is about profits. I mean, I think like what, you know, the way Pride and
But that's good,
Ceremony
because that means that a
co-opted,
majority of society feels a certain way, and
exactly.
they're following the money.
When
So-
Uber and Google have the biggest floats at Pride, you know, a lot of folks say like, oh, it's been co-opted, and where's like the edgy rawness, and this isn't, they've taken it away from us, and that is absolutely true. And it says, you know, we're not just doing the morally right thing and getting on the right side of history. We're getting on the right.
We're doing what the mainstream believes. But
yeah.
whatever shifts the boat, whatever turns the boat, you know. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you also can't have a company having the biggest float at Pride and then having anti-LGBTQ practices in their corporate offices. So once they make that public demonstration, then you can hold their feet to the fire in terms of actually, you know, following the principles that they claim to hold when they do these kind of performative purchases, or when they sell a rainbow bottle of absolute vodka or whatever the hell they're doing every year, you know.
And that's where we have, I mean, we have to give this movement legs, right? We have to give this moment, we have to make this moment a movement and hold corporations accountable, hold every institution accountable, including mine, including, you know, a majority white, yes, we're multiracial, but majority white, majority educated, you know, financially stable folks who, you know, are not on the margins. So how do we?
And the thing is that people don't want to be uncomfortable, right? No one wants to be uncomfortable. And it takes like long, ongoing, repeated conversations in a space of discomfort to really make change. And especially, you know, for people, you know, on the progressive side, and like I grew up, was born and raised in the Bay Area. I know it very well. It's the only place in the country, except for maybe like Madison, Wisconsin, where people hiss at the movie previews before the movies actually get played. They are just telling everybody how they feel about this movie or that. I mean, we are very vocal, very progressive community in the Bay Area. But we can't be self-satisfied in that. And I think that we have to do our own work. And, you know, it's very easy if you're, you know, you're part of a progressive community to be like, well, we're good. We did it. We're good people. We're nice people with good intentions. But, you know, that doesn't move the needle either. So, you know, the other conversation I've been having a lot with people, you know, of every ethnic background, all my friends of different cultural backgrounds, is like, and it's been not a new conversation, people have been having this conversation online all summer, is like people going like, I'm here, I want to learn, I want to listen. I've been explaining racism to you my whole freaking life. I'm absolutely freaking done. Please Google racism. It's amply explained on the internet of a variety of perspectives. There are books, there are resources. I'm sure there's like a puzzle you can buy, or a box of cookies that explain all the kinds of racism that you can teach them as you go. I'm finished. I am finished talking about it. I'm finished explaining it. I'm just done.
Just, you know,
and you know, we were having those conversations all summer. What's that?
They can just watch your whole back catalog of stand-up shows.
You just Google me. And also, I'm done with people asking to touch my hair. I'm just finished, guys. I'm so tired. You know, I just moved out. You guys have worn me out. And but I had this conversation about like, I think it's important. This has to be this racism is a white people problem, and white people need to solve it.
Yes.
Like, Black people did not invent racism. We've been marching for our own liberation. We've been fighting for our own liberation since we got here. We've never stopped fighting. But we can't do it without the people that put the structure in place and that benefit from that structure. And so we have to have these tough conversations every day and be open, and you know, and be willing to get upset and get uncomfortable, and come back from that.
Right. That's what I've been saying to, you know, lots of folks and myself, like, if you're uncomfortable, you're doing it right. And that doesn't mean we can't take a breather, have a rest stop, you know, on this journey, but, you know, we have to sort of give it gas and then coast for a bit. But, you know, we have to keep going kind of further up and further into this work.
So, and it's good work. Like, I am optimistic. That was your question.
Yes. Yeah.
That was your question, and I am optimistic. I do feel like the conversations that people are having now with each other, with themselves, the kinds of conversations I'm having in corporate environments now, just more open, more willing to to admit that there's been historical bias in a certain situation, tips for people to admit they don't know what they're doing. I see that a lot more now. And I think it's also incumbent upon me as a woman of color, and it has been, but it's a big part of what I want to do with my work, is to make space for other women, other people of color, and queer people, and people who have been marginalized previously, to make space for them behind me, because the fact of the matter is there are women that did that before me, but also there's been a very long narrative that's told to anybody who's marginalized that there's only room for one of you. So, you know, it's up to, you know, when I was a stand-up, you know, they'd have one woman on the lineup or one Black person on the lineup, 10 white guys.
Diverse.
And somehow they've gotten it
Now
done,
we're diverse.
you know?
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, oh, we already have a woman, we can't have another woman. You have 9. Did you tell it to the other 8 white guys? That's your hide the first white, we've got a white guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, it creates this scarcity economy where you think that there's only enough for you. And so you end up either subconsciously or consciously trying to exclude other people that might take up your one available space.
Right.
And so I think we've got to unlearn that. Women have to unlearn it. People of color have to unlearn it. People in other marginalized communities have to unlearn it, that there's room for all of us, that high tide raises all boats, and that, you know, your success is going to immediately fuel the success of somebody that looks like you. So, you know, it's also incumbent upon you to try to do your best work and try to kick some doors down if you can.
Yeah. There you go. So one of my prisoners had a question: what was it like as a Black woman trying to break into comedy? And this is coming from me as a Black woman, you've defied a lot of stereotypes. I mean, you are a video gamer, you're a heavy metal fan. You know, there's so many ways in which you don't fit stereotypes, and not that anyone is a stereotype, but like you more than lots just really kind of blow it up. So yeah, tell us about the arc of that. Tell us about decolonizing Friends, when you were Ross and Joey's love interest in a love triangle there. Yeah, NBC No Black Characters, not when you came up.
Yeah. Well, first I'll talk about the first part of the question, which is that for a long time, I was a very nerdy kid. I was, you know, I was like 5'8" by the time I was like in the 2nd or 3rd grade. I was just in giant test. And I was also the only Black kid in my school for most of my childhood. Maybe like for 1 year, there were like 2 or 3 Black kids in my school. Most of the time I was the only one. And I also lived in an ashram, and my parents were vegetarian, and they meditated, and we were poor. So like, I just had every kind of like social mark going against me. And
you didn't belong to anyone, or you didn't belong anywhere.
No, I was a woman with no tribe. I had no
but
tribe.
then you belonged everywhere, right?
Well, I belong nowhere. I was very much the man has no face when I was a kid. Because I also was a big reader. My parents didn't believe in television, so I was a big reader, and I was really accelerated reader. So like a lot of times I would be studying alone. I wouldn't have a reading group. Like I just was this really isolated kid. And years ago, I did this interview with Seth Green about like how popular like nerddom has become in popular culture. And he was saying that you can't claim to be a nerd if you didn't spend a significant portion of your childhood playing alone. And I played alone until I was like 13 years old. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you know, I mean, like I used to take my radio behind the school and like listen to music and read a book, you know? And I'm really happy that was the childhood I had. I love the person that I turned into. And I always tell parents when they have nerdy kids, you know, like, nerdy kids make that's not English. Nerdy kids make iconoclastic adults because they really figure out who they are and what they want, and they don't make decisions based on how they're going to be perceived by other people.
You're not
like it's just going to be cool.
Yeah, building.
Yeah, am I going to be accepted? Yeah. Or if they feel constantly observed, which a lot of popular kids do, feel constantly observed, they're either afraid to do anything unusual because they'll be judged or ostracized, or they're constantly kind of preening in front of others to maintain popularity. So, you know, since I didn't have any popularity to maintain, I kind of went my own way. And I think the more that people told me, you know, like girls don't like that kind of music, and Black people don't eat that kind of food, and, you know, kids like you don't do this or do that or like science, the more I was like, well, I'm going to do exactly what I want, you guys, in a second. So that's probably why, you know, I just followed my interests and didn't line up with what people expected of me. And maybe at some point that became like a real like that became my brand when I was a kid, you know, like I liked all the weirdest stuff, and I skated, and I loved heavy metal, and I, you know, went to punk shows. I like, cause you know, I'd always been the only Black kid, so why not be the only Black kid everywhere I went, and really like just have experiences instead of worrying about how it was perceived. So that's probably why. I mean, all of those interests and passions are genuine, but I think they came about because I just explored what was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really care what anybody thought about what I did. And
how did that serve you getting into your current line of work?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that the main part of all of that was helpful was just that I could take a punch. I mean, like, you know, the entertainment business is like not a friendly, kind place, but I already spent a lot of time experiencing unfriendly, unkind energy. And I knew who I was before I got into this business because I'd had a long time in the forge. You know what I mean? You know, when you're a nerdy kid, like,
you were not looking for
at some point you just you don't need approval. You've never had it, so it doesn't really mean anything to you. You know, so it's helped me be an explorer. I think, like, creatively as an artist, it's helped me really just, again, that kind of rash bravery of like, let's just see what happens, which is, you know, why I started doing stand-up comedy, why I moved to LA. I didn't ever fear failure because I was pretty sure it was going to fail. I just figured, like, it doesn't matter if I fail or not. I'm just going to go enjoy myself. With the full expectation that at some point it's not going to go my way, but I didn't want to lay awake in bed one night and be like, I wish I had tried to do the stuff I wanted to do.
Yeah, and you worked your
I don't know that that's an answer to that woman's question.
And you said yes to a lot of things, right? Like not, you know, unethical.
No, I mean, no sex work. No.
Yeah, like I think of.
There's nothing wrong with sex work. But I did not do any sex work.
Did not. They're not going to be. If there were tapes,
I will not shame. No, I wouldn't. If you're an adult, a consenting adult, then you're safe. But
absolutely.
I'm not kink shaming anybody. But no,
we're sex positive. That's all good here. I'm remembering the tour you did through the South with two white guys. The comedy.
Oh yeah, that was terrible. No, it was one guy was Filipino and one guy was white.
Oh, okay.
And and
it was and a white guy.
Yes, we were a racist starter kit. It was really, really not a fun experience. We made no money.
To build.
Yeah, it was just I had opportunity to make money doing comedy. We paid, and also we did like, I don't know, maybe like 60 shows, which when you're a young comedian, like getting stage time is like really difficult and very precious. So it really was like, we were on tour. There were these colleges. Like you know, colleges get like a certain amount of money for like student activities every quarter, and they have to spend it. So they spent it on this little comedy tour, and it was a nightmare. It was the deal was we would each get to do like 10 minutes of stand up, and then there would be a game, and the game was, you know, you'd spin this wheel, and then whatever the number landed on was the amount of money that the person would win if they could stand on stage with a comedian for a minute without like breaking a smile at all. And so
like,
of course
people, honey. If you love me, honey, you'll please. If you love me, honey, you'll smile. It's like that middle school game.
Exactly. You know, like a Wheel of Fortune, just on, you know, like vast amounts of some kind of amphetamine. And so of course people would come watch the first half hour of the show practicing not laughing so that they could win the money. So they could see the silent half hour of people being stoic, you know, practicing so they could win money. And then, you know, us just trying to like physically abuse them into laughing without actually touching them. And, you know, it was miserable, just torture.
That's a perfect
we went to a lot, but
go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
That's a perfect segue into talking about humor and spirituality and the subversive power of humor. There's so much more I want to talk about, but I have my eyes on the clock.
Okay.
So
you're a very good moderator.
About good and evil and criminal minds and how you got in touch with, you know, how you got in touch with the power of good and evil to play your character in Criminal Minds, but for another day. Maybe I'll come back. We did a couple.
Oh, you just teased everybody. Are you going to cut that out? They're going to be miserable if you say that and I don't answer.
You got to leave them wanting more. So we did a couple short scriptures earlier today. The middle school kids acted them out for us. One is a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. One is God will yet fill your mouth with laughter and your lips with shouting. And this is what I consider a modern sacred text. Anne Lamott, who lives just down the way in Mill Valley, said, laughter is carbonated holiness. So
that's lovely.
Thinking about comedy and the liberating power of laughter, that it's, Mark Twain said swearing is sometimes more effectual than praying. And I feel the same way about laughter. Like, you can pray all you want, but sometimes you just need to laugh your butt off at something ridiculous to sort of get the devil off your back. Like, shift your despair, shift your cynicism. Do you have anything to say about that, Aisha Tyler?
Well, I have
After
two things to say. I think I have two things to say about it. One is, I do think, speaking, I'm very underread in this particular area, but I think, in speaking from a spiritual standpoint, if you believe that that there is purpose to being here, I think that probably the two purposes that I see most clearly are to feel joy and to try to bring joy to others. I think that transcends most disciplines, and I think especially in Buddhism, the core principle is to understand that there's suffering, and that your job here is to try to alleviate as much suffering as possible, first your own and then the suffering of others. But I think that ties in really closely with that. But I mean, I think if you think about this life as a gift, then the essence of that would be to revel in it and to enjoy it, because it's relatively ephemeral and short. So to feel joy and to try to transmit it to other people would be a pretty high level of service to yourself and others. So that's what I would say about that. Also, it's so nice. It's just nice to laugh. It's just a nice thing. It transports, it changes your body chemistry. It elates you. These chemicals stay in your body for like hours after you laugh. And, there's no, the thing is, it just, it's just hard being alive, right? It's hard being a human. So that you have to lean into the parts that are joyful.
Yeah.
Because what else can you do?
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm remembering one of your first comedic roles right now. Aisha and I were in an a cappella group in college that we actually helped found, and
and they're still there, and they're like monsters of rock. They're like the Rolling Stones of a cappella on our campus now. We were not the Rolling Stones of a cappella when we were there, though.
I was a charter member.
Nudo.
I'd failed to get into any of the other a cappella groups. So along with all the other losers, we're like, well, darn it, we want to sing. So we started this group, and we decided we weren't going to be like a bunch of Barbies. We weren't going to, it wasn't about looks, and it wasn't about,
we were hardcore feminists for the time. I mean, we dressed very like no kind of sexuality to our dress at all. We were very kind of like almost like androgyne / anodyne, like very much when you hear our words.
You will not turn your male gaze on me.
No way. No, we wore these big, really unattractive mock turtlenecks that really should be banned from human use for the rest of our existence on this planet.
It was a good year. And of course we did skits in between the songs, and one of the skits was Frat Man, and you being a 6 foot tall person, and also a very funny person. And
moderately masculine. I mean, I have a nice deep baritone voice.
Range. You have range.
I don't mind. I embrace my butch side. I love being butch. It's one of my favorite qualities.
I embrace your butch side too.
Mm-hmm.
So you were Frat Man, which it was hilarious because it, made a joke of all the gross things that frat boys did. And we got to laugh at it, and in laughing at, not condone it, but really undermine its power over us. On a campus that still experienced a lot of sexual assault and substance use and abuse. And just thinking about how humor can really tell truths about society in ways that are painful, but also are liberative and help us deal with the trauma of what's being revealed, right?
Well, that's the power of comedy, period. I mean, that's the essential power of comedy is to speak truth to power and to and to say the things that can't be said directly and without humor. You know, it's you know, it's also why you have seen historically so many people of color and you know, other marginalized groups, you know, so many Jewish comedians, because it was really a way to point at prejudice, to point at bigotry, to point at racial and social and cultural and economic injustice in a way where you could be saying those things right to the person that was oppressing you, right to the person that had the power. So yeah, it's always been, you know, satire has always been a tool, you know, a weapon against tyrants.
Yeah. Thank God we have
Absolutely.
it.
Yes, the tyranny of the fat man.
How am I going to land this plane? I just wanted to say, like, you know, people think of Jesus as so serious, but Jesus had jokes. You know, he was master of paradox, and you know, just like totally getting the best of his hecklers, because Jesus had a lot of hecklers, like all the people in power who were always trying to, you know, sort of like skewer him and put him on the spot, and he always flipped it back on them. He was just masterful. And my people have probably heard this, but you know, I have a scatological sense of humor, and Jesus told a poop joke.
You know, I've noticed that over the years.
Yes. Another way have vibed and been kindred spirits, because not every joke has to be about something traumatic. Poop is funny.
No,
and farts are funny.
Farts will be supremely hilarious.
Yes.
You could never lose with a great fart joke.
Yes.
Yeah,
And Jesus,
just the sound of a fart. The great thing about fart joke is you don't have to write any words. Just everybody laugh.
If you're feeling despair, just get yourself a cushion. You'll have a blast. Okay. We have to start wrapping up, but I have a couple speed round questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
Let's see what you think. What are the gods of this age, metaphorically speaking?
Oh, technology, social media, and money. Money will always be, unfortunately.
Okay. Who are your heroes?
Oh, I wish I'd done all my homework. I have a lot of heroes.
Who are your, like, so you say you're more of a science, not a spiritual person, but who are your, like, if I can use my language, who are your spiritual guides? Who are your, like, humans? Doesn't have to be Buddha.
Like, who do I go to for advice?
Who do you go to for advice, or who kind of calls you back to your center when you're spinning out? Or
yeah. I mean, obviously my family. My family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family's awesome.
Yeah, I find them to be very grounding. My sister is incredibly spiritual, and always thinking in spiritual terms. So, you know, she's really a seeker. So she believes in other, you know, planes of existence, and you know, and she still believes very deeply in karma. So, you know, but I, you know, when I'm unmoored, it's just typically more around, like, trying to remind myself of why I feel I'm here and what I feel is important, what is important for me to do while I'm here, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not like I figured it all out, but I don't think I have the same kind of, like, I don't, you know, a couple dynamic years there, you know. I mean, I think the one thing that's been helpful to me is to just remember that, like, nobody gets to live here without things being dynamic. You know, the expectation that we're just going to cruise through life and it's going to go our way every day with no trauma, no
very
hardship.
Diplomatic, dynamic. I like that.
Yeah, it's just like a, you know, everybody suffers, right? Like, that's just, it's unavoidable. You're just trying to suffer better, suffer with more presence of mind, and understand that suffering is an aspect of being alive, but shouldn't define it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Last question, kind of related. How do you find hope when all hope seems lost?
Well, I have two answers. The first answer is going to be very trite. I really have been looking at a lot of puppy and kitten videos. Like, an old lady is like totally, like, when I really lose it, it's just puppies and kittens.
Tears.
Sometimes I just can't take it anymore, and I sort of like a puppy fall down, or a goat hop on top of a puppy.
See, I would say God made it that way so that, you know, God made, like, babies and puppies and kittens with their big eyes and their helplessness to call forth our tenderness when life is so hard, right? Like, it's science and evolution, survival of the fittest, and it's like part of the grand design. Anyhow, Not to say. What's
Yeah,
the second?
this is a conversation everybody we have all the time. And
I try to talk
and
her
it's a
into
lovely
believing
one
in
because
God.
I respect, yeah, and I just tell her it's never going to happen.
But you said keep trying. Like earlier today,
I admire you and I admire your intellect. So I always love having these conversations with you. And I'm not so unsure of my position that I can't tolerate, again, dynamism. I think if someone cannot tolerate an opposing point of view, that says a lot about their inability to understand and express who they are than it does with your point of view. So I'm always open. I'm just okay with there being things that are wondrous and unexplained, because I've got lots of work to do here down in the dirt. But yeah, so I think that's a lovely way to explain it. I don't really know where puppies and kittens come from other than from mommy puppies and kittens, but
other than from
sure love looking at puppies and them. Other than from Instagram, other than from my Instagram feed. So yes, you would explain it as the inscrutable mind of God, and I just think this is the immense and noble. So puppies and kittens, and then also, again, like I'm lucky I have people in my life that I love and respect very much. That when I'm really having a hard time, I kind of go to them and I'm reinforced by them, and I hope that I am able to do that for them when they're going through challenging times as well. So, I think that's the other great blessing that we have as human beings. The power that we have is just to be available and to be kind to other people when they need it.
And you have been that for me for
I love you.
For 32 years now.
I would really prefer you never say that out loud again.
32 years. Someone just turned 50.
I just turned 32.
That's
so
what
rude.
50 looks like, babes. I love you so much.
I am 50 and I can stretch and I can. Oh!
You can crack. Sometimes
I can crack my foot
on the table. I love you.
Oh my God.
So to close this out, Aisha and I used to dance a lot, especially on Friday nights, weekends, just to get our yayas out. So we're going to close with one of our favorite jams from, I don't remember what year, probably 89, 90. And we hope you'll groove.
Yeah, I want to say, okay, we were living in the Tavern, so I'm going to say it was either 90 or 91.
Someone will correct us.
We graduated 19, yeah.
But here we go. Let's have our walkout song. It's not a walkout song because we're already here, but our groove song.
How do you say? Delight, 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 delight. We're going to dance. We're going to dance. We're going to dance and have some fun.
Dig. The chills that you spill up my back keep me filled with satisfaction when we're done. Satisfaction of what's to come. I couldn't ask for another. No, I couldn't ask for another. Oh, that's right. Your groove, I do deeply dig. No walls, only the brick. My cup of dish, my crocketesh wish. I couldn't ask for.
Friends, in joy and gratitude for what we've received from the peek into that beautiful friendship and the hints for what we might need to do, let's take a moment to offer our hearts to God in gratitude and in need. As always, we will pray and we will sing. We will begin in prayer. We will sing a little. We'll pray a little more. The first set of prayers, if you're new to First Church, are the things that we are asking God to help us carry, the heavinesses and the difficulties. The second set of things are the reminder that underneath all of that heavy stuff, there is a well of gratitude. And so we lift up the things we are grateful for. And the third thing we do is we pray with our voices together as one, the words that we learned from Jesus, the words of the Lord's Prayer. And you'll see the words of the song on the screen, and I do invite you to sing along at home. As we pray, I invite you to get in the comments. I don't quite have the attention span to be able to read them all as they're coming in at the same time as I'm praying, but I trust that God is able to hear my voice and read your comments all at the same time. And putting your prayers in the comments gives us a chance as a community to really pray together, to hear what's on each other's hearts. So give yourself a little wiggle and notice where you are in space, and take a deep breath, or maybe even two, and join me in prayer. Holy and living God, we thank you for this moment in time. We thank you for stretching your arms out towards us and receiving the heavinesses and the difficulties of our lives. We offer to you all those things that are holding us back, all those beloved members of our community close by and far away who are in special need of your care. We continue to pray for our sister Alice Clark, who is recovering from shoulder surgery. We continue to pray for Helen Wadman and Joe Jensen, who are also both recovering from surgery. We continue to place in your hands, God, Susan Stangeland for her ongoing health issues. We offer you our beloved Melissa, Casey, Ashley, and Edison, the family from Honduras that we are accompanying. And for the family hosting them, we ask you, God, to give them peace and joy and community and an abundance in every way they need it. We continue to pray for those other members of our community recovering from surgery or illness, including Susan Aberg, Holly Coates-Bash, Alexandra Ellman, Latanya Goodson, and Jessica Rain, and all those other beloveds that are on our hearts. We continue to pray for all those who are battling wildfires, for those who have lost homes or properties, for those who have been stuck indoors with bad air. We thank you, God, for the air we're breathing right now. We ask you to protect all those who are fighting fires and to help us find a way to live more sustainably on this planet. We continue to lift up all of our siblings of color. We ask you, God, to encourage and strengthen them, and to encourage and strengthen those of us who are white to take on racism as our problem. Give us guidance and wisdom. Give us community and nourishment as we seek to end all forms of injustice and to make a world where all people can thrive and all people can lead. We continue to place in your hands, God, all those people who are sick, all those battling COVID in our country and around the world, and for all the medical professionals and caregivers supporting them. We ask you to help us find a way through this pandemic together as one family of people recognizing our shared humanity. And we continue to place in your hands, God, all those people in our community who suffer from depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges, particularly those who are experiencing an uptick in symptoms during the pandemic. We ask you to give us peace and to help us create robust communities where we can care for each other when things are tough. For all the prayers that are on our hearts, for all of our beloved ones who need our care, for all of the people who are feeling separated from you, God, we ask you, draw near, be with us, and help us. Let's pray by singing. You'll see the words. Hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. And as we have released and handed over the heavy stuff, God, we ask you to help us see and recognize and feel all those beautiful and good things that we are grateful for. We lift up in gratitude all those doing the work of justice and peacemaking in our world. We lift up in gratitude the resilience of the earth and the many new chances we get to live sustainably. The richness and generosity of our community. All those people close and far doing incredible work in challenging circumstances during this pandemic. Parents, kids, and teachers, artists, musicians, actors, and entertainers, all those who are helping us think and imagine and dream new ways of being in the world. God, thank you for them. Thank you, God, for the beautiful offering of Thrive Choir in yesterday's Resonance concert, for all the ways that people among us are dreaming up new ways of leading the revolution, for all those working to safeguard our democracy and help others participate in it. And God, we lift up in gratitude and thanksgiving our sister Aisha Tyler. God, we ask you to bless her with continued joy, laughter, creativity, and community. We thank you for this space to offer all of the prayers of our hearts to you, God, for all the lightness and all the beauty and all the richness and all the community. We are grateful. Let's sing together. Hold on, hold on, keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. And wherever and whenever you are in time or space or other illusions, we join our voices together as one to close our prayer in the words we learned from Jesus. Our Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive all our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and all the glory, forever. Amen. Friends, this month, as we gather our prayers together, as always, we also gather what resources we can share. Gathering up some material gifts in one basket so that we can share them with our community. In the month of October, we are sharing our gifts with the Women's Daytime Drop-In Center in Berkeley, which is a kind of wraparound community space for women experiencing homelessness. We've seen some pretty incredible videos from them so far, and more will come. But this morning, we just get a chance to remember and to thank God for what they do, and out of response to that gratitude, to offer back some of what we have. So I invite you to join me in helping support their mission, extending their reach so that everyone in Berkeley and the surrounding areas who experiences homelessness can find a landing place and a hand, a path into a stable housing situation. This is the work of God's hands in the world, so I invite you to join me in supporting it. And would you pray with me for a moment as we ask God to take the gifts that we offer, small as they may be, and multiply them, bring them together and make them more than we could be individually, blessing the work of each of the hands of the staff and volunteers at the Drop-In Center, and knitting us together even more closely as one community who recognizes how much we have in common with everyone around us. Amen.
Let justice flow like streams of sparkling water pure, enabling growth, refreshing life, abundant cleansing sure. Let righteousness roll on as others' cares we heed, an ever-flowing stream of faith translated into deed. So may God's plumb line just define our measure true, and justice, right, and peace pervade this world our whole life through.
Friends, if you have been blessed and uplifted by what you've heard today, like me, then maybe you'd like to come together with me and some of the rest of the congregation for the after party, which is what we call our coffee hour. Particularly if you are brand new, if this is your very first time ever attending a First Church service, you might be thinking, oh no, that's not for me. But the thing is, it is for you. And I can guarantee that it is not awkward. You end up in small groups where you get to know a few folks for short periods. It's really fun. So the link will be in the comments of wherever you're watching this. And if you're watching it live, I invite you, if you have a little bit of time, to come and just meet us. We would love to see you there. For folks for whom this is not your first time, but you're a little bit newer, next Sunday, the 18th, there will be an Explore First Church gathering, which is a little sort of get together to talk a little bit more about the church and what we're like in our history and where we're headed, and whether you might like to make some kind of commitment around membership. So there's full membership where you sort of, join in a ceremony. There's also other categories like associate membership that people sometimes choose if they want to preserve another religious affiliation or another affiliation to a church, or you've got a local church somewhere else, but you're kind of starting to think of us as one of your communities. We would love to be able to exchange some promises together and to say, hey, we really are one community together. So if you're interested in that, you will see details all over the place on the website and CARILLON if you read the CARILLON from last week. One more thing from the CARILLON that you may have seen is that we are experimenting with some gatherings in safe outdoor ways with small numbers. If COVID numbers continue to do what they're doing at the moment, we're going to be experimenting with Porch Church, which is some gatherings of small numbers in a few yards. If you're interested, the information is in the CARILLON, and we're using Sign Up Genius, so to make sure that the numbers stay small. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. But do consider that if you think that would be something that would be, a little bit of spiritual nourishment on the journey. Lots more details of events and things coming up are all over the place on Facebook and the CARILLON, on the website. Lots of opportunities to plug in and be part of a community, which I think is so important in this season. So do reach out and join us for things. And again, I really hope to see you at the after party, which will happen shortly. And one more thing, which I forgot to say last week, most weeks, other than when we have communion in the main service, there is chancel communion, also on Zoom. The link will be in the comments as well. And a smaller but substantial subset of the church likes to get together and have communion together after the service. It's led by different people. It's really sweet. So if you feel like having communion together would be a little bit of spiritual nourishment for you, I invite you to join that too. Hope to see you at something soon. And now, receive from me and from this community the benediction. As you go today, as you move on into the next moment of your life, may God offer you exactly what you need. Enough laughter and joy to buoy you and to lift you up so that you have the courage and the strength to do whatever it is that God is calling you to do. In this moment, may your vocation roll out in front of you like a red carpet. May you find the courage and the skill and the community around you to find your way down it and to find your way exactly into your place on this stage of all of the people doing God's work. Amen. See you soon.